Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Malcolm Porter was a civil engineer, meticulous, objective, used to solving problems with logic and precision. Since he was young, he saw life as a series of challenges that could be overcome with planning, patience, and method. That approach worked well at his job, where he managed large infrastructure projects, led teams, and handled tight deadlines. But when it came to marriage, Malcolm discovered that not everything could be solved with spreadsheets and schedules. Some things required something he had plenty of but wasn't always appreciated for: patience. Married to Vanessa for 8 years, Malcolm had always believed that communication and mutual effort were the foundation of any solid relationship. In the beginning, everything seemed perfect. Vanessa was cheerful, talkative, full of energy. They met at a mutual friend's party, and from the first encounter, Malcolm felt he had found someone special. She made him laugh, brought lightness to his structured routine, and he, in turn, offered stability, security, and a predictable future. They married 2 years later in a simple but emotional ceremony surrounded by family and friends. The first years were good. They built a life together, bought a house in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Charlotte, North Carolina, and began planning their future. But little by little, something started to change. Vanessa began to show dissatisfaction in subtle ways at first: frequent sighs, complaints about the routine, saying she missed excitement in their lives. Trying to understand, Malcolm would ask what he could do differently. She would answer that she didn't know, that maybe it was just a phase, that it would pass. He believed her. But it didn't pass. On the contrary, it got worse. Vanessa began to complain about his business trips, which sometimes kept him away for a few days. She said she felt lonely, abandoned, that their marriage was losing meaning. Worried, Malcolm tried to make it up to her. When he returned from trips, he brought gifts, flowers, planned special dinners. He suggested couples therapy. Vanessa refused, saying they didn't need that it was an overreaction. So he proposed concrete changes: weekend getaways, surprises, even reducing work trips if necessary. Vanessa accepted some of his ideas, but soon returned to the same pattern: distant, cold, irritated for reasons he couldn't identify. And every time Malcolm tried to talk, she repeated the same lines: "I promise I'll do better, now I understand what you mean, this time it'll be different." For 10 whole months, he heard those promises. And for 10 months, he believed them. Because Malcolm, above all, was a man who believed in people. He believed that with effort and goodwill, anything could be fixed. But there was something he didn't know. While Malcolm was trying to keep their marriage alive, Vanessa had already taken another path. Months earlier, a former college classmate had reappeared in her life through social media. His name was Tyler. Vanessa didn't tell Malcolm about the reunion. She only said she'd been talking to a few old friends, nothing more. But the conversations with Tyler grew more frequent. They started with innocent messages, then phone calls, until they arranged to meet for coffee. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into more frequent meetings. And without Malcolm knowing, Vanessa began building a parallel life, fueled by an illusion of freedom and excitement she believed she had lost in her marriage. Tyler was different from Malcolm. He didn't have stability or maturity, but he had charm, smooth talk, and knew exactly what to say. He told her she deserved more, that she was wasting her life, that she should live passionately. And Vanessa, seduced by that narrative, began to believe the problem wasn't her, it was the marriage. That Malcolm, no matter how dedicated, was part of the routine that suffocated her. So, without courage to end it and without will to fix it, she chose the coward's way: betrayal. One day, Malcolm had to travel for work to supervise a project in another state. It was a short trip, just 3 days, but essential for the project. The night before he left, he packed his bags, reviewed documents, and before going to bed, remembered he'd forgotten his laptop charger at the office. Since he would leave very early, he decided to grab it in the morning. But during the trip, he realized he had forgotten it again in the rush. Without it, he couldn't work properly. He called Vanessa to ask her to send it by express mail. He called once, twice, 3 times. Vanessa didn't answer. Worried, Malcolm called Greg, a trusted neighbor who lived 2 houses down. Greg was an older, retired man, always friendly and helpful. Malcolm explained the situation and asked if he could go to the house, get the charger, and mail it. Greg had a spare key, exactly for emergencies like that. He agreed without hesitation, grabbed the key, walked to Malcolm and Vanessa's house, opened the door, and went inside. The house was silent. Greg went upstairs to the office, but as he approached, he noticed something strange. The door was locked from the inside. He heard muffled voices, quiet laughter. Suspicious, he knocked on the door. Silence. He knocked again, harder. Vanessa? It's Greg. Malcolm asked me to grab his charger. A few seconds later, the door opened slowly. Vanessa appeared, visibly nervous, wearing only a silk robe, her hair messy, her face flushed. Behind her, trying to hide behind a bookshelf, was a man. Greg, even unwillingly, saw him, a stranger, barefoot, holding his shirt in his hands. Greg froze for a few seconds. Vanessa tried to act natural, as if nothing had happened, but the scene was too obvious to ignore. Greg, he's a friend. We were talking. Greg didn't respond. He just shook his head, grabbed the charger from the desk, and left, closing the door behind him. Once home, he picked up the phone and called Malcolm. His voice trembled with anger. Malcolm, I'm sorry. I didn't want to be the one to say this, but, you need to know. Malcolm listened in silence, sitting on his hotel bed, phone pressed to his ear, heart racing. When Greg finished, he thanked him, hung up, and sat there, frozen, trying to process. His first reaction was disbelief. It couldn't be true. Vanessa, the woman he'd built a life with, wouldn't do that. But as the minutes passed, the pieces began to fit together. The constant complaints, the coldness, the sudden outings, the phone calls she took in another room, it all made sense now. Malcolm didn't sleep that night. He spent hours staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the past months in his mind. And at dawn, he made a decision. He wouldn't confront Vanessa over the phone. He wouldn't shout, beg, or create a scene. He would act. With the same logic and precision he applied to his projects, he began to plan each step. First, he cancelled the remaining meetings for the trip. He rescheduled, reassigned tasks, and booked the first flight back to Charlotte. During the flight, he mentally listed what needed to be done. He couldn't act on impulse. He needed solid proof, not just Greg's testimony. He needed documentation, evidence that left no room for denial or manipulation. Vanessa was skilled at twisting situations, convincing him, making him doubt his own perception. But this time, Malcolm wouldn't give her that chance. When he got home in the middle of the night, Vanessa was sleeping soundly. He entered quietly, left his suitcase in the hallway, and went straight to the office. There, he began searching. It didn't take long to find obvious signs: a half-empty wine bottle, 2 glasses with residue, a man's jacket on the couch. He took photos of everything carefully, capturing every detail. He opened drawers, checked papers, looked for anything else that could serve as additional evidence. He didn't find much more, but what he had was enough. Then he went to the bedroom and looked at Vanessa sleeping. For a moment, he felt a sting of sadness. That was the woman he had loved, dreamed of building a family with, growing old together. But at the same time, he felt anger for being deceived, for giving so much to someone who didn't even have the courage to be honest. He took a deep breath, left the room, and spent the rest of the night on the couch, planning his next move. The next morning, he woke Vanessa as usual. She got up, surprised to see him home, and tried to act like nothing was wrong. Malcolm made coffee, served them both, and when she sat down, he said in a calm but firm tone, "We need to talk. Tonight, when I get back from work." Vanessa, nervous, dropped her cup. "Talk about what?" He looked at her for a few seconds, expressionless. "You know." And he left, leaving her alone with the weight of that sentence. All day long, Vanessa panicked. She tried calling Malcolm, sent dozens of messages, but he didn't respond. She didn't know if Greg had told him, if Malcolm had found out another way, or if he was just suspicious. She called Tyler, desperate, saying she thought everything had been discovered. Tyler panicked too and said he didn't want trouble, that she should handle it alone. Then he hung up. At that moment, Vanessa realized she was completely alone. Meanwhile, Malcolm wasn't at work. He was at a law office, meeting with a divorce attorney. He told him everything, showed the photos, explained the situation. The lawyer listened carefully and finally gave his assessment. Malcolm had a solid case. The house was in his name, there were no kids, and while infidelity didn't directly affect asset division in North Carolina, which follows equitable distribution, it could still strengthen his claim of broken trust and speed up the process. Malcolm signed the necessary papers, authorized the start of proceedings, and asked the lawyer to accompany him that night for the confrontation. The lawyer agreed. When Malcolm came home that evening, he brought the lawyer with him. Vanessa, seeing them enter, turned pale. She tried to smile, tried to ask who the man was, but her voice faltered. Malcolm motioned for her to sit. She obeyed, trembling. Then, in a calm, chilling voice, he began to speak. "Vanessa, for 10 months, I heard you say you'd change. That this time it would be different. That you understood what I was saying. I believed you. I gave you space, time, patience. I tried everything. And you? You betrayed me." Vanessa tried to interrupt, deny, say it was a misunderstanding, that nothing had happened, that the man in the office was just a friend. Malcolm raised his hand for silence. Then he placed the photos he had taken on the table, the wine bottle, the glasses, the man's jacket. Vanessa looked at the images and began to cry. "Malcolm, I can explain," he cut her off. "Don't bother. Greg told me everything. He saw you, Vanessa. He saw the man in the office. And before you try to deny or twist anything, I also have this." Malcolm opened his laptop and showed a series of photos Greg had taken on his phone at the moment he caught them. Greg, on his own initiative, had documented everything to protect Malcolm in case Vanessa tried to twist the story. The photos were clear, leaving no room for doubt. Vanessa broke down. She covered her face with her hands and began sobbing, muttering incoherent apologies. Malcolm, still impassive, continued. "This is the lawyer who'll handle our divorce. The papers are ready. The house is in my name. You have 1 week to move out." Vanessa looked up, eyes red, trying to appeal emotionally. "Malcolm, please don't do this. I made a mistake, I know I did, but we can fix it. We've been together for 8 years. 8 years, Malcolm. You can't just throw it all away." He took a deep breath, crossed his arms, and replied with a steady voice but without anger. "I'm not throwing anything away, Vanessa. You already did that. I'm just accepting reality. And you know what else? You still have the nerve to say the marriage was bad? That I didn't give you attention? I gave you everything. I tried in every way. And you chose to cheat. So don't tell me I'm being unfair." The lawyer, who had been silent until then, spoke up. "Mrs. Porter, I suggest you find your own legal representation. The process will begin tomorrow morning. Any communication from now on should go through attorneys." Vanessa tried to protest, but Malcolm was already standing, signaling the conversation was over. She tried to reach for his arm, but he stepped back. "Don't touch me." The coldness in his voice made her stop. In the following days, Vanessa tried everything. She called Malcolm dozens of times, sent messages, showed up at his office. But he didn't give in. He blocked her number, informed security not to let her in, and stayed firm with the divorce. She made one last attempt, telling her family everything, hoping someone would intervene. But it backfired. Vanessa's mother, a strict and traditional woman, was horrified when she heard about the affair. She called Malcolm to apologize on her daughter's behalf but made it clear she didn't condone what she'd done. Her father, in turn, cut ties with Vanessa temporarily, saying she had shamed the family. Tyler, the so-called friend who had reappeared, vanished as soon as he realized the affair had been exposed. He blocked Vanessa on all social media, changed his number, and disappeared. Vanessa, who thought she had found an alternative to her marriage, realized too late he had never taken her seriously. He was just a man who took advantage of an opportunity with no intention of taking responsibility. Malcolm, on the other hand, moved forward with determination. He kept working, focused on his projects, and slowly rebuilt his emotional life. It wasn't easy. There were nights when loneliness hit hard, when he questioned whether he'd done the right thing, whether he should have given her another chance. But whenever those thoughts came, he revisited that image in his mind: Vanessa in a robe, a man hiding in the office, the broken promises, the 10 months of lies. And then the doubt disappeared. The divorce process went relatively fast, considering there were no children and most assets were in Malcolm's name. Vanessa tried to contest it, asked for a more favorable division, but failed. The judge, after reviewing the evidence and circumstances, granted a minimal equitable division, allowing Malcolm to keep the house and most assets. Vanessa left with little more than what she had brought into the marriage. Months later, officially divorced, Malcolm started going out again, allowing himself to meet new people. He wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't trying to replace Vanessa, but to rebuild his life on his own terms. And surprisingly, he discovered he was stronger than he'd thought. The pain of betrayal, as intense as it was, didn't define him. He chose not to become bitter, not to let the experience turn him into someone distrustful or closed off. He chose to learn, to grow, and to move on. One afternoon, about a year after the divorce, Malcolm was at a local supermarket doing his usual shopping. He pushed the cart absent-mindedly, thinking about his list, when he heard a familiar voice. He turned, and a few feet away, there was Vanessa. She looked very different, thinner, tired face, simple clothes, without her usual sparkle. She carried a small grocery bag, walking slowly, as if the weight of the world was on her shoulders. Their eyes met. For a moment, time stopped. Vanessa hesitated, then walked toward him. Malcolm didn't run, didn't look away. He just waited. When she reached him, she tried to smile, but it came out weak, almost sad. "Hi, Malcolm." He gave a small nod. "Hi, Vanessa." She hesitated, searching for words. "You look good." Malcolm nodded. "I am. I hope you're doing well too." There was a brief silence, heavy with unspoken things. Vanessa took a deep breath, clearly wanting to say more, maybe apologize again, maybe try to reopen a door that was long closed. But Malcolm didn't give her space. Not out of cruelty, but for self-preservation. He had already made peace with the past and had no interest in revisiting it. He said goodbye with a small nod and walked away, pushing his cart toward the checkout. Vanessa stood there, watching him leave. And in that moment, she felt the full weight of everything she had lost. Not just Malcolm, but the life they had built, her family's respect, emotional security, a sense of belonging. All of it had been destroyed by choices that once seemed justified but now revealed their true nature: selfishness, cowardice, and lack of character. Malcolm, meanwhile, as he got into his car with the groceries, felt an odd peace. There was no anger, no desire for revenge, just a calm certainty that he had made the right choice. That unlike Vanessa, he hadn't thrown away what he had. He had simply recognized that when someone repeatedly breaks your trust, when someone chooses betrayal over truth, there's no fixing it. And that moving on, no matter how painful, is the only way to preserve your dignity. In the months that followed, Malcolm's life continued to improve. He received a promotion at work, taking charge of a major project that brought him not only professional recognition but personal fulfillment. He started going to the gym, returned to old hobbies he'd abandoned during the marriage, playing guitar, hiking on weekends. He reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and gradually realized that life after divorce wasn't an ending, it was a new beginning. Vanessa, on the other hand, faced a very different reality. Without Malcolm's emotional and financial support, she had to move into a small apartment and start over. The relationship with Tyler, which she had romanticized during the affair, never materialized. He disappeared completely from her life, making it clear he'd never had serious intentions. Her family, while not abandoning her entirely, kept a polite distance, still processing their disappointment. Vanessa tried reconnecting with old friends, but most already knew the story and preferred to stay away, not wanting to get involved in drama. She tried several times to contact Malcolm, always with different excuses: a document she needed to sign, something she'd forgotten at the house, a question about taxes. But Malcolm, polite yet firm, always redirected everything to the lawyers. There was no space for personal conversation, no chance for reconciliation. That chapter was closed, and he had no interest in reopening it. One night, almost 2 years after the divorce, Malcolm was at a restaurant with friends when he noticed Vanessa walk in with a woman who seemed to be a coworker. She didn't see him at first, but when she finally did, she looked visibly uncomfortable. Malcolm, however, didn't react. He kept talking and laughing with his friends, enjoying the evening. There was no bitterness left, no pain. Only indifference. As he left the restaurant, Malcolm passed by Vanessa's table. She looked at him, maybe expecting a greeting, a word. But he just walked past her as if she were a stranger. And in a way, that's exactly what she had become, a stranger. Someone who once was part of his life but now belonged only to the past. The lesson Malcolm learned from all of it was clear and final: trusting people is important, but blind trust is dangerous. He had given Vanessa every chance to save their marriage, he'd been patient, understanding, willing to change. But she chose the easy way, the path of betrayal, lies, and empty promises. And by making that choice, she lost not only her husband but her self-respect and the possibility of a good future. Malcolm never regretted how he handled things. He didn't shout, didn't make a scene, didn't publicly expose her. He simply faced the truth, took the necessary steps, and moved on. And by doing so, he proved that real strength isn't in holding on to someone who doesn't want to stay, it's in having the courage to let go. Because in the end, some promises are meant to be broken. And when that happens again and again, the only dignified response is to turn the page and start a new chapter without looking back. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.